Now, you often come to events like this and people say, the next guest is somebody who needs no introduction. And actually, usually they do. But this is somebody who probably is one of the very few people on earth that could legitimately be said about. He is quite literally a living legend. He is the world's greatest living explorer. Ladies and gentlemen, Sir Ranulph Fiennes.
Very much indeed. I'm going to read the speech, although I have already covered points I've got down here have already been covered. So anyone, I have to say that I've been floating on an ice floe 800 miles north in Siberia for 3 months, and whenever on a little tent on an ice floe that was getting smaller and smaller, and it happened to be on the main polar bear route. Bad choice. And we tried hard not to shoot the ones that attacked us. What we did was we banged cooking pots together, and this was a noise they had never heard before and was frightening, and it saved us shooting the polar bears. Another thing for the 1968-69, with 60 Arabs and 6 Land Rovers, our job was to patrol the whole of the border of Saudi Arabia, Yemen and Oman in the Rub al-Khali empty quarter, to the greatest sand desert in the world. And a wonderful thing was seeing Dibby, Thompson's gazelle, and oryx in their natural environment. So it was so sad when just after that in the 70s, mainly Saudi rich people in jeeps, some with machine guns, and the oryx population just plummeted. But mainly British people working in UAE and in the Oman managed to save the last of the oryx population. And so it's so sad to seeing Brits now allow shooting of that saved population. Really sad. Anyway, I'm going to bore you stiff now. It is now 4 years since Cecil the lion was killed by an American trophy hunter, Walter Palmer. He did not die, Cecil didn't, immediately from the arrow, but suffered for nearly 12 hours before Palmer eventually tracked and killed him with another arrow. Following a worldwide media storm, a ban on the lion trophy trade was called for. A handful of governments did so, including France, Holland and Australia, and I am ashamed to say, as some of our speakers already have, we did not. Dozens of airlines announced that they would enforce their own bans on carrying big game trophies, and B&A and Virgin did so to their own lasting credit. If anyone's here from them, good for you. You could be forgiven for thinking that things had changed after the Cecil thing, but this is not the case. An investigation by the campaign to ban trophy hunting has found that since Cecil was killed, as many as 5,000 lions have been killed for so-called sport. It was also found that double the number of lion trophies entering Britain, it had doubled. Considered some associated facts, can I pass these to my wife?
Wishful thinking.
1 million species are in danger of imminent extinction. Lions, polar bears, elephants and many others already face complex threats, yet it is still legal here to kill endangered animals for fun. We do live in a world of multiple contradictions, not the least being Brexit, but surely there are few as perverse and sickening as the one we all here are about to change, hopefully. Habitat degradation, climate change, international wildlife trafficking, for example, are challenges which require considerable effort to address. But trophy hunting could be stopped today and would bring immediate relief to our beleaguered wildlife. It is an entirely easily preventable problem as long as we stick together, and our parties, which is so wonderful for me to see today, sticking together over that. Trophy hunting has had a devastating impact on the world's wildlife. In Tanzania, it has been the main cause of declining lion populations. In Katavi National Park, there were over 1,000 lions in 1993. By 214, all gone. In Zambia, even hunting operators admit that the loss of lions is down to trophy hunting. In Mozambique, hunters say they struggle to find any adult male lions to shoot. And it's their fault. In the 1950s, there were approximately 450,000 lions in the wild. Today, there are less than 20,000. They have gone extinct in 26 countries of their previous habitats. Despite this, governments still allow a staggering 10,000 lions to be killed by hunters, and that's over the last 10 years. Lions are close to extinction right now, and this is a scientific reality. If as few as 5% of the remaining adult males are killed, the genetic breeding population will be beyond saving. Ladies and gentlemen, trophy hunting is calculated cruelty. It is having a critical impact on wildlife numbers. 10 years ago, we put a ban on hunting in this country. Its next step is what we're talking about now. I therefore put it to you that it is a crime against nature, and thus should be made by us a crime by law. To make matters worse, canned lion hunting, as some of the speakers have already said, and the bone trade have recently emerged. There are currently 300 facilities in South Africa which are breeding lions for this hideous trade. Trophy hunters can get a guaranteed lion trophy much more cheaply. It's like, going up Everest. If you pay 50,000, you might come down alive. Pay 8,000, it's cheaper, but you might not. The lion is in an enclosure, the poor lion. It cannot escape or hide. Indeed, it has been bred in captivity and may assume that an approaching human is bringing his dinner, not about to shoot him. I have seldom heard of anything more pathetic and cowardly than this. Why any person would consider this something to boast about is beyond comprehension. The lionesses in these farms are forced to breed repeatedly by removing the cubs when a few hours or days old. When she can't breed any longer, she is killed for her bones, for various forms of fictitious medicinal properties, and traded by people known to be involved in illegal Rhinehorn trafficking. These lion factories, farms, bring shame on humanity and shame on South Africa. I have to say, I was brought up and schooled out there from the age of 1 to 12 years old at a time when we in South Africa were a pariah in the international community because of apartheid. That stopped, thank God. We now risk becoming again a target of international protest. Mugabe and Zuma have gone, but the new guys aren't doing much better, it seems. Here in Britain, we too must hang our heads in shame. Not we in this room, but those who are for it. We are facilitating this appalling industry. Virtually all the lion trophies coming into Britain today come from these despicable canned lion establishments. Britain is one of a dozen countries which dominate the elephant trophy hunting trade and the legal killing of elephants for their ivory. We have softer laws than the United States, where most of the trophy hunters come from. United States law prohibits American trophy hunters bringing home cheetah trophies. British hunters can do so. Under CITES, that's the Convention of International Trade in Endangered Species, it is prohibited to trade in animals listed in Appendix 1. That is the most threatened of types. But trophy hunters are exempted. British authorities allow hunters to import trophies of endangered species into Britain. Trophy hunters often hide under a guise of conservation, saying that they kill the old, the weak, and the sick, thus improving the health of the herd and therefore good for wildlife. This is very rarely true. Proven by their own egotistical photographs, hunters kill the most magnificent examples of the species they target, the biggest, the rarest, the largest horns, etc., thus rendering the remaining breeding stock of the herd the poorest genetic examples to breed on. An example of what this has done to our elephants. There are very few large elephants left with big tusks. Most of them have been killed. Many elephants are being born now with either no tusks at all or very small ones, thus making it difficult and often impossible for elephants to dig down for water in dried up waterholes as they once did. So the ones we don't shoot may eventually die from lack of ability to obtain water for their families. The UK has given permits for British hunters to import trophies of species that are defined as critically endangered, some already extinct in the wild, such as the scimitar-horned oryx. There are just small populations on private game reserves. As I said, in the late 1960s, one of my jobs for 2 years with the Oman Army was to patrol the Rub al-Khali, where the Arabian oryx was hunted to extinction in the 1970s. A captive breeding population in the UAE and Oman allowed them to be reintroduced into the wild. What happened? British authorities allowed British trophy hunters to shoot them all over again. Madness. If we are serious about conservation, society must move on beyond trophy hunting. It is absurd in this day and age to consider the killing of animals for fun as anything other than immoral and unlawful. Britain must take a lead on this issue. Britain must start by calling for the immediate ban on the import of hunting trophies into this country, which some of the people in this room, the MPs, are here and are capable of doing. So I shall be watching you carefully. Britain must then commit to helping secure the global abolition of trophy hunting. Humanity must learn to value and live alongside our fellow inhabitants. Science has taught us that animals feel pain, build strong family bonds, and mourn the loss of members of their pride or herd. What will our children say if we exterminate one of the greatest creatures that ever walked the earth, simply because we allowed a handful of people to kill them for pleasure? My own teenage daughter, Elizabeth, furious at our government's apathy and failure to follow Holland, France and Australia in enforcing a ban on trophy hunting, my daughter, has spoken out at a rally recently in Trafalgar Square. Where are you, Elizabeth? The reality of lions and elephants going extinct is imminent. That is why I beg our government to ban trophy hunting ASP, and I'm asking all of you to act now before it is too late. And we'll miss that bit because Eduardo has gone into it thoroughly. I applaud the work of Zach Goldsmith. His determination to change the law, and I'm encouraged that this is actively supported by parliamentarians of every political party. Good for the UK, good for the government getting together over something. I also commend the work of the Daily Mirror and the many other media organisations who are working hard to expose the truth and to engage the public on this issue. For those of you who haven't seen today's Mirror, as well as yesterday's, there's an exposure of a notorious British trophy hunter, plus his photographs, and it's worth looking at. We live in times of division and uncertainty. However, this is one issue which unites all of us, and where the difference between right and wrong is blatantly clear, okay? No arguments? No. It is time to act now. Ban trophy imports into Britain immediately, and then help ban trophy hunting worldwide. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Ranulph Fiennes has been a supporter of this movement literally from day one, even before we actually became an organisation. He referred to his daughter Elizabeth there. I'm not going to embarrass her too much, but I do have to say this. Those of us who were fortunate enough to witness her speak on Saturday, it was something to behold. There were passers-by who literally stopped and they stayed and they sat down and they listened. They were absolutely enthralled. Elizabeth is 13 years old. It was the first time she's spoken in public. I know she's going to be speaking a lot more time. So thank you, Elizabeth. And